how you get to avoid putting a lot of plier marks on the design just by using your hands as much as possible. And so even now we don't even have to use our hands until we create the bail. So in order to create the bail, we need to straighten out the wire. But if we just pull up, you see what that does? Let me show you a little closer. If we just pull up without securing the top with our finger, that's what happens. The whole pendant sort of comes apart, and the top wire is not getting straightened. So what we have to do is put our thumb here on the threshold, right there, like a button. Boop. And then this wire here, you're going to pull it up this way, and it's going to become more and more vertical. Straighten it out a little bit. I want to want to make it more vertical. All right, that's closer to where I want it to be. See how it's actually over vertical now. So I'm going to bring it back some. And you want to make this top wire as straight as possible, because that's going to determine the straightness of your bail. If you got a sort of crooked wire up here, it's going to be a crooked bail. And with this sort of straightforward, simple design, I like to have a really nice straight bail to complement the clear sort of straightforwardness of the crystal, as well as emphasize that aspect of the crystal. And these types of designs are for like clarity of mind, peace of mind, clearing out the immune system of toxins. So everything about this pendant, you just want to be clean, and straightforward. So from here, we can create the bail. So we can use these bail pliers and put them in right here. Get them nice and snug. You know what I mean? Like it's cuddling. You want these pliers, or rather this hole right here, this circle, to be right above the threshold, to be sitting right on it, so that, just double checking, perfect, so that when you grab this wire here, how to do that again, so when you grab this wire here and pull it down, it's going to create a very nice bail here, a nice loop. And you can pull out the pliers now. And now you have a bail, or almost a bail. And we can cut this wire here and then bend the bail, well, rather the wire inward to create the bail. So that's what we're going to do. And the way to cut the wire is, you see with these pliers, you have a flat side, you have a sort of weird side. You don't want to cut with the weird side like you want to cut with the flat side away from your fingers. So if your fingers are over here on the right, you want the flat side to be over there. And I mean, it just kind of looks more natural when you cut it. You cut things this way versus this way. It's like, it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't look right so much. And it's because, well, no, it's also that the cut is not going to really be right as well. Because when you cut it this way, the wires just, it's just not going to be, the kind of cut that you want. So this way, it's going to create sort of a bite on the mark. Sorry, on the cut of the wire, which I'll show you like once it's cut. And when you cut, you want it to be a 45-degree angle, at a 45-degree angle, in relation to the threshold. So if this is, a flat table, you want the cut to be about here, slightly above the threshold. Because when you cut the wire, it's going to be sort of this claw here kind of hanging off. And after it's hanging off, you're going to get flat nose pliers and sort of pull it in. And when you pull it in, that's going to connect to the threshold, and it's going to make up for the fact that you cut too high earlier. And it's going to, have a nice sort of completion of the circle that you had initially bent into shape with the bail pliers. So here, just line it up. I'm going to cut it above the threshold, and about 45-degree angle. All right, and notice when I cut the wire, I made sure to hold the wire that the wire that was gonna fall with my other fingers, and that's a good habit to form because you might be working with silver or gold, and you want to always be able to just know exactly where your scrap is and be able to toss it right into the scrap bin. Because if you're working with solid gold and then you you clip it, you cut the wire, and then it goes flying because these are like kind of spring-loaded pliers, you just lost like a bunch of money that you could have gained back if you had recycled the gold or knew where it was. And I mean, same thing with copper and silver, but I guess to a lesser extent. So, I mean, with the copper scrap, I just, put it in this little bin here. Here you can see, that sort of sharpness. I want to show you. You see that at the very tip, or rather on the underside of the cut, you can see sort of a line, which is reflecting the light. And that line is what I call a bite. It's very sharp and carries a lot of friction with it when it's leaning up against the threshold. So the way I get it to lean up against the threshold and have a nice clean and closed bail is I grab this wire here, and the way I kind of think of it as I kind of think of it as like a bird, with a beak. This being like the beak, this being like the head, this being like the neck, and it's kind of like the beak of the bird, like tucking into its chest, and it's like since this right here is so sharp, leaned up against the threshold, it's it's not gonna really come loose. It's actually made so that it'll sort of get tighter as pressure is applied upward towards it. As it's being worn, the chain is going to keep applying upward pressure to it since gravity is pulling it down. So, just going to tuck in this sort of beak of the bird, if the top of the pendant is like a bird. And you can see the bail or the wire is now, facing almost completely inward. And when it's not completely inward, you can sort of pull it out a little bit and then twist the pliers a little bit more so that it's facing more inward. And once you get to that point, that's a good angle. But there's still some space between this here and the threshold there. So this technique to close that gap is what I call seesawing. You get the flat nose pliers here, and you do like a seesaw, like whoop 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 whoop, like this. And every time you go back and forth, you're trying to get it so that this bite here starts to scratch the threshold. And once you can hear it scratching or see it scratching the threshold, that it's a good bail because it's closed. And you see it there. It is closed bail. So when a chain goes through it, it's not really going to come out at all. Now let's see. I like to have this align a little bit to the right. So I'm going to seesaw a little bit more to the right. And boom. It's a nice top to the pendant.